letter of Helaman to General Moroni continues.
I, Helaman, received a letter from Ammoron, the king, saying that if I would free our prisoners of war, he would give the city of Antiparah to us. But I wrote to him that we could take the city by force, and that we would only free prisoners in an exchange of prisoners. Ammoron refused. The people of Antiparah, knowing that we would attack, fled to their other cities to fortify them. So Antiparah fell into our hands, and so ended the 28th year of the reign of the judges. At the beginning of the next year, we received men and supplies from the land of Zarahemla, including 60 sons of the Ammonites. So strengthened, we decided to fight the army that was protecting Cumeni. We surrounded the city at night, just before it was to receive supplies. We camped there for many nights, ready to fight at any time. Whenever small groups of Lamanites attacked us, we defeated them. When the supplies of the Lamanites came, we surprised the Lamanites that were bringing them, took the Lamanites prisoners, and seized the supplies. Despite the fact that the Lamanites in the city were under siege and could not get supplies from outside, they defended it. So we sent the supplies that we seized to Judea and our prisoners to the land of Zarahemla. The Lamanites inside the city became desperate and soon surrendered to us. We had so many prisoners that we, despite our numbers, had to decide simply to guard them or to kill them. We had so much trouble with them that 2,000 of them were killed attempting to escape. We appointed guards over the prisoners, and the journey to Zarahemla began. The next day the guards returned as other Lamanites were attacking us and saved us from defeat. For Ammoron had sent them new supplies and an army to help them. We did not have time to ask about the troublesome prisoner. My little band of 2,060 fought most desperately, stood their ground, and killed all those who opposed them, even though the rest of the army was giving way. They obeyed my every command exactly. The Lamanites were driven back to the city of Manti. We kept the city of Cumeni. We had suffered great losses. 200 out of my 2,060 had fainted from loss of blood, but not one had died. And every one of them had received many wounds. Their faith in God had saved them. When we asked Gid what had happened to the prisoners, Gid was the chief guard over them when the journey to Zarahemla began. He said,
"We started down to Zarahemla with our prisoners. We met 2 spies of our army who had been sent out to watch the enemy. They said, 'The armies of the Lamanites are marching toward the city of Cumeni. They will kill our people.' When our prisoners heard this, they attacked us. They ran upon our swords, and most were killed. The rest fled from us. We could not catch them, so we marched to the city of Cumeni as fast as we could and arrived in time to help you. We have been delivered from our enemies by our God."
So we went out to fight the Lamanites in the city of Manti. The next day we were beyond the Lamanites and soon arrived at the city of Manti and possessed it without shedding blood. We had recaptured all the cities that were taken by the Lamanites, and many of our people had returned to their homes. Though our armies are small and our possessions great, we trust in God that we may keep our people safe. We do not know why the government does not give us greater strength. We worry that it may be in trouble, or that it is divided over whether to help us. And now, my beloved brother Moroni, may the Lord our God bless you. I am Helaman, the son of Alma.
So Moroni wrote to Pahoran, the governor of the land,
Pahoran, I write to you, the chief judge of our people, who from Zarahemla governs our people and manages the conduct of this war. We have suffered many hardships, and many of us have been killed in battles. But you and the government have neglected us and our cause. Are you in a stupor? Your enemies are murdering thousands of your brethren. Do you want us to seek revenge against you? Your brethren have not been wicked. They have died because of your neglect. You will be condemned for it, although they go into the rest of the Lord their God. You know that the traditions of the Lamanites are wicked, so send help to me and Helaman.
Pahoran wrote to Moroni as follows,
I, Pahoran, the chief governor, want you to know that I grieve to hear of your trouble. but many of our people are rebelling against freedom and righteousness. Those who want to seize my authority have driven me to the land of Gideon. The wicked among us have captured Zarahemla, thinking that the Lamanites will be able to conquer the rest of the land. They have a king who has entered into an alliance with the king of the Lamanites, so that he can remain king over our people. I am not angry that you have criticized me, but I do rejoice in the greatness of your heart. Come quickly with a few of your men. Let us oppose the dissenters together and recapture Zarahemla, so that we can send more food to Lehi and Teancum. Let us put an end to iniquity here. You have helped me to decide what to do. The Lord wants us to fight evil, even among our brethren. Tell Lehi, Teancum, and everyone to remain strong in their faith.
Moroni was very happy to receive this faithful letter from Pahoran. Pahoran loved freedom and was not a traitor. But Moroni was very sad to read about the evil revolution in Zarahemla. Moroni left Lehi and Teancum in command and led a small group of men toward the land of Gideon. He gathered thousands to his standard to fight for freedom. The forces of Moroni and Pahoran became very strong when they joined, even stronger than those of becuase, who was the king of the dissenters in Zarahemla. Moroni and Pahoran and their armies marched to Zarahemla and fought the men of becuase. Becuase was killed and his men were taken prisoners. Pahoran was restored to the judgment seat. The men of becuase and the king men were brought to trial, thrown into prison, and executed according to the law. At the beginning of the 31st year, Moroni rushed provisions and 6,000 men to help Helaman defend that part of the land. And he sent the same quantity and number to Lehi and Teancum to help them against the Lamanites. Then Moroni and Pahoran, leaving a large number of men to guard Zarahemla, led an army toward the land of Nephi to defeat the Lamanites in the city of Nephi. On the way, they defeated a large body of Lamanites, killing many of them and capturing their provisions and weapons. Moroni and Pahoran made the rest, of whom there were about 4,000, promise not to fight the Nephites again. Moroni and Pahoran sent them to live with the people of Ammon. Then they continued their march toward the land of Nephi, and soon they pitched their tents on the plains around the city of Nephi. When night came, Moroni climbed the wall to see where the Lamanite army was camping in the city. It was on the east by the entrance, and all were asleep. Moroni returned to his army. His men made strong cords and ladders that could be let down on the inner part of the west wall, away from the army of the Lamanites. So the army of Moroni and Pahoran got inside the city. In the morning the Lamanites awoke and saw the Nephi army inside the city. Moroni and Pahoran had captured the city, and not one Nephite had been killed. All the Lamanites who were captured joined the people of Ammon and became like them. With these events, the Nephites became strong and the Lamanites weak. So Moroni marched his army to the land of Lehi. When the Lamanites saw Moroni and his army coming, they fled. Moroni's army pursued them from city to city until Lehi and Teancum met them. Bewildered, the Lamanites fled upon the borders of the sea until they came to the land of Moroni. The Lamanites were all gathered together in one body in the land of Moroni, their king Ammoron with them. Moroni, Lehi, and Teancum commanded the Nephite armies to encircle the Lamanites in the wilderness on the south and east. Then their armies camped for the night. They were tired from long marching, but Teancum was so angry with Ammoron and Amalickiah for starting the war that in the night he lowered himself from the wall of the city and found Ammoron. Teancum threw a javelin at Ammoron and pierced him near the heart. Before he died, the king awakened his servant, and the king's servants chased Teancum and killed him. Lehi and Moroni knew that Teancum was dead and were very sad, for Teancum had fought valiantly for his country and was a true friend of liberty, and he had suffered greatly for his faith. In the morning, Moroni and his army marched against the Lamanites and killed great numbers of them. The Lamanites fled and were afraid to turn around and fight. It was thus that after many years of war and dissension, peace reigned in the land. Moroni gave the command of his armies to Moronihah, his son. Pahoran returned to his judgment seat, and Helaman began preaching the gospel again. In the 36th year, Helaman gave the sacred things to his brother Shiblon, who was also a just and righteous man before God, and then Moroni died. In the 37th year, 5,400 men with their wives and children left Zarahemla and went into the land northward. Hagoth, a very skillful man, built a large ship on the borders of the land of Bountiful. He boarded it with many Nephites and their families, and fully provisioned, sailed northward. The next year, he built more ships. He returned with the first ships so that more Nephites could emigrate. We never heard from them again. The next year, Shiblon died, but before Shiblon died, he gave to the son of Helaman, who was also called Helaman after his father. The people, however, had records of the sacred writings and knew them well, passing them down from one generation to the next. This begins the book of Helaman, the son of Helaman, who received the sacred things from Shiblon, who got them from Helaman, who in turn got them from Alma. The young Helaman was about 25 years old when he received them. In the 40th year, serious trouble began for the Nephites. Pahoran had died, and the sons of Pahoran argued about who should take his place on the judgment seat. These were Pahoran, Peunchi, and Pecumeni. Pahoran's other sons were not concerned, but the division among these three caused the division of three among the people. However, Pahoran, the son of Pahoran, was chosen by the people to be chief judge and governor over the people of Nephi. Pecumeni agreed with the vote, but Peunchi and the people who wanted him to be governor were very angry. Peunchi was about to rebel, but he was arrested, tried, and condemned to death for trying to destroy the liberty of the people. Peunchi's followers were so angry at this development that one of them, Kishkumen, went in disguise to the judgment seat and murdered Pahoran. Pahoran's servants chased Kishkumen, but no one could overtake him and catch him. Kishkumen found his friends and all swore falsely by their everlasting Maker that they would not tell who had committed the crime. Most of them mingled among the Nephites and could not be found. Some were found, however, and were condemned to death. Then Pecumeni was appointed by the people to be the chief judge and governor in the 40th year. In the 41st year, the Lamanites had gathered a very large army and had armed them with swords, scimitars, bows, arrows, headplates, breastplates, and all kinds of shields. Then they came down to fight the Nephites with a man named Coriantumr, who was a descendant of Zarahemla, leading them. A large and mighty man, he was a dissenter from among the Nephites. The king of the Lamanites, who was Tubaloth, the son of Ammoron, thought that Coriantumr was wise and strong enough to defeat the Nephites. Coriantumr and his army marched to Zarahemla so quickly that he so surprised the Nephites that they could not gather their armies in time to save the city. Pecumeni fled to the wall of the city, but Coriantumr caught him there and killed him. Coriantumr was proud that he had captured Zarahemla and felt confident that he could conquer other lands of the Nephites. He and his army left Zarahemla and went toward the city of Bountiful to the north. He used the same plan. He marched his army to the center of the land and began killing and capturing the Nephites there. When Moronihah realized this, he sent Lehi with an army to stop the invasion of the land of Bountiful. Lehi's army fought so hard that the Lamanites began retreating toward the land of Zarahemla. Lehi's army kept fighting, and in a bloody battle, Coriantumr was killed. When Moronihah arrived, the Lamanites saw they were surrounded. They surrendered to the Nephites, and Moronihah took possession of the city of Zarahemla again. He let the Lamanites who were prisoners return to their own lands in peace. In the 42nd year, after Moronihah had established peace between the Nephites and the Lamanites, the people began to argue about who should become the chief judge, but soon the people decided upon Helaman. Kishkumen waited for a chance to kill Helaman too, and his band had entered into a covenant with him to keep his wickedness a secret. Gadiad was the leader of the band of Kishkumen. He promised Kishkumen that if he killed Helaman and seized the judgment seat, that he, Gadianton, would make Kishkumen and his men masters over the people. But a servant of Helaman had learned of the plan by disguising himself and going among the enemies of freedom. He met Kishkumen and gave him a secret sign. So Kishkumen told him what he was going to do. So the servant said,
"Let us go to the judgment seat."
The servant stabbed Kishkumen, who died instantly. Then the servant ran to Helaman and told him what had happened. So Helaman sent men out to try to capture Gadianton and his band, so that they could be executed according to the law. Seeing what was happening and fearing destruction, Gadianton led his band into the wilderness. Helaman's men could not find them. His band for many years would be called the Gadianton Robbers. It was peaceful in the land of Zarahemla from the 43rd year of the reign of the judges to the 46th. But in that year, there was so much contention that many people left and went into the Northland, crossing many bodies of water and rivers. They found some timbered areas that had not been ruined by former inhabitants. But because timber was not plentiful, the people became expert in working cement and building houses with it. They built many kinds of buildings, among them temples, synagogues, and sanctuaries. They even imported timber by ships, and so they built many cities of both wood and cement. Even though there was contention, Helaman was a righteous and honorable judge, and the Lord blessed him. He had 2 sons who grew in righteousness, Nephi and Lehi. In the 48th and 49th years, the land became peaceful. The Gadianton robbers were in hiding in populous areas, so the government could not destroy them. Tens of thousands of righteous people were baptized into the church, and great blessings of prosperity were poured out upon the people. The Lord was merciful to the sincere of heart who believed in him. In the next year, some people who professed to belong to the church began to be filled with pride and began to persecute their humble brethren. But these brethren became even stronger and more faithful in their humility. Helaman died in the 53rd year, and his oldest son Nephi began to reign. Nephi was faithful and just, kept the commandments of the Lord, and walked in the ways of his father. In the 54th year, many people began arguing and fighting. The rebellious were either killed or driven out of the land of Zarahemla. Those who were driven out went to the king of the Lamanites, and among his people to get them to fight the Nephites. But at first the Lamanites were afraid. In the 56th year, the dissenters succeeded in getting the Lamanites to prepare for war, and in the following 2 years the Lamanites fought the Nephites and captured the land of Zarahemla, and all the lands to the land near Bountiful. The Nephites and the armies of Moronihah were driven into the land of Bountiful. In the 60th year, Moronihah and his armies recaptured many parts of the land. The trouble for the Nephites would not have happened if dissenters had remained faithful and humble, but they committed all sorts of sins. So the Lord left them with only their own strength. But by preaching the gospel to the people, Moronihah, Nephi, and Lehi tried to save them from their sins. As the people repented, they began to regain their possessions, cities, and lands. But Moronihah found that because the Lamanites were so strong, only half of the lands could be regained. The judgment of God was upon them, and they were alone without his marvelous protection. Because the Nephites were so very much fewer than the Lamanites, they could perish without God's help. That year, Nephi gave the judgment seat to a man named Cezoram, because he, Nephi, was tired of the wickedness of the people. He and his brother Lehi decided to preach the gospel for the rest of their lives. They remembered that their father Helaman had so instructed them, that they had been named after Nephi and Lehi of old, in order that they would remember the holy calling of their people, and that the coming of Jesus Christ into the world was not far away. The Lord would come and redeem the people from their sins. So Nephi and Lehi went among all the people of Nephi to teach the gospel. They preached so powerfully that they confounded many of the dissenters who had gone among the Lamanites. Many of these dissenters repented, were baptized, and went home to right the wrongs they had committed. The Lord inspired Nephi and Lehi to speak with so much power and authority to the Lamanites in Zarahemla that 8,000 of them repented, were baptized and became convinced that the traditions of their fathers were wicked. Nephi and Lehi went to the land of Nephi. They were captured by an army of Lamanites and thrown into the same prison where the servants of Limhi had put Ammon and his brethren.